While fantasy anime has been among the most popular anime genres for a while now, a subsection of this genre is also a fan favorite. Dark fantasy anime incorporates a grittier side of fantasy anime, where you have to deal with more mature themes and some explicit content from graphic violence to raw intimacy. Such anime are usually premised on a supernatural or fantasy setting, and from horror elements to overwhelming emotions, they cover it all. In this video, we will introduce you to some of the best dark fantasy anime out there, and now might be a good time to look away if you're squeamish. BERSERK, 1997 to 1998. There have been multiple adaptations of BERSERK, but this particular version is certainly one of the most impactful. It tells the story of a skilled swordsman named Guts, who was raised by a group of mercenaries. One day, he ends up killing his guardian in self-defense, and he was on the run until he came across the charismatic Griffith, the leader of the Band of the Hawk, a force that fought for the King of Midland. Guts becomes a part of this force, and even helps the king win a crucial battle against the neighboring empire. This victory ensured a place for the Hawks in the king's personal guard, but Guts soon finds out that life at the top isn't as rosy as he thought. Anime fans swear by the top quality of BERSERK, and they have very good reasons for their loyalty. This is an extremely well-written anime, where the intriguing character development and the exciting narrative keeps you addicted till you watch the whole thing. The animation isn't the best you've ever seen, but you wouldn't worry about such trivial details with such an engaging storyline. The violence shown in BERSERK is truly next level, and you have to be prepared for the worst horrors imaginable to mankind. There are scenes of men being impaled through their eyes, people being cut in half, terrifying forms of torture, and blood flows by the gallon. You also have to sit through a couple of disturbing rape scenes, and even the protagonist is not spared as a child. The series ends with an unexpected twist, and it might be a great way to be introduced to the franchise. This version of BERSERK does justice to the source manga, and it is simply dark fantasy anime done right. CLAYMORE, 2007. The story is premised in a dreadful world where the Claymores are a species of half-human and half-demons called Yoma. They protect the humans from the full-breed Yoma who disguise themselves as humans and feed on them. Claire is a young member of the Claymores, and she is in the business because she seeks revenge for her personal losses and loved ones killed by Yoma. She's not the strongest warrior in the Claymore ranks, but she is known for pushing her limits and taking up some of the most dangerous missions. Is there a permanent victory to be had against the Yoma? When you think of a show about hunting down demons and monstrous creatures, the story more often than not falls on the predictable side of things. However, CLAYMORE stands out as an exception, as the plot is not just innovative but filled with surprises. The main protagonists are extremely engaging, and you'll find yourself rooting for quite a few of them. A majority of the show relies on Claymores fighting dreaded monsters and even each other, so the violence is almost an unending saga. There are plenty of dismemberments, beheadings, and other forms of graphic violence. More than the violent bits, there are a couple of heartbreaking moments in the narrative that will leave you shattered. If you are mature enough to handle all of this, you'll also get to enjoy some beautiful animation and a very satisfying climax. Even today, this incredibly paced, entertaining anime series tops the list for many fans, and you ought to check it out if you haven't already. Goblin Slayer, 2018. Goblin Slayer is premised in a kind of dystopian world where humanity has gotten used to being in a constant state of war with various types of monsters and evil entities such as goblins. There are groups that have dedicated themselves to the termination of these threatening elements, and goblins are generally perceived to be the weakest of the lot. However, some of the goblins are quite powerful, and there are only a few who are capable of slaying them. In comes the Goblin Slayer, the man who's an expert goblin hunter, and he only takes up the special goblin killing missions. What is his story, and how will he handle the intensifying war with the forces of evil? This fantasy adventure takes a darker turn quite frequently, but it still promises an interesting narrative with a diverse range of characters. The story progresses quite nicely, and the intensity and threat keep on increasing with passing episodes. Goblin Slayer doesn't take much time to hit you with the harsh realities and disturbing scenes. The very first episode has a rather graphic rape sequence where goblins take a young girl by surprise. This scene can be emotionally distressing, and there are many other similar scenes of the baddies forcing themselves on the innocents. Violence is plentiful, and the Goblin Slayer always manages to find innovative ways of killing goblins. The anime does leave out some cool parts from the original manga, and the order of the source material has also been tampered with, but it's still a solid entertainer and quite underrated compared to some of the others on this list. DORORO, 2019, Dororo brings you the story of two main characters, both of whom have rather tragic upbringings. The first one, Hyakimaru, was born to a samurai general who offered the body parts of his unborn baby to 48 demons in exchange for supremacy on the battlefield and domination all over the country. When Hyakimaru was born, he was thrown into a river, but a kind man found and adopted him, even fitting him with prosthetics. Hyakimaru becomes a seasoned demon hunter, and every time he kills one, he regains one of his lost body parts. After a while, he comes across the other main character, a boy thief named Dororo, who becomes his traveling companion. Together, they continue their mission of finding demons to slay and complete Hyakimaru's body. Dororo is often regarded as one of the finest anime shows of the last decade, and the claims aren't too far-fetched. Such shows are hard to come by, and the action-packed drama and adventure are enough to keep the viewers hooked. The dark and moody artwork blends with the haunting atmosphere, and this self-contained story is all set to become a modern-day classic. While Dororo might not seem to be as disturbing as some of the others on this list, there are moments that might challenge sensitive viewers. The baby born with 12 missing body parts, including his eyes, skin, and limbs, is definitely a disturbing image, and there are plenty of scenes capturing the attack on innocent civilians by demons and monsters. The fighting scenes are quite gory, and the bloody mess is certainly not for the weak of heart. Of course, this is only a remake, and while we aren't always optimistic about remake projects, Dororo really gives us a great example of how they should turn out. Basilisk, 2005. This story is premised during the early days of the Tokugawa period, and the focus is on the long-drawn conflict between two rival clans of ninja warriors named the Iga Subagakure and the Kuga Manjidani. When Tokugawa Ieyasu assumed power, an uneasy ceasefire was brokered between them, but hostilities resumed once Ieyasu retired from power. Now, their former ruler commands both clans to send in 10 of their best warriors to fight in a ruthless competition, where only the best of them would survive and decide the outcome of the conflict. What will be the fate of the clans, and who among the fighters will emerge as the winner? This happens to be a wonderfully written anime series, where the complicated story arc covers subjects like politics, action, and romance at the same time. The animation quality is quite impressive, and there are some very interesting and appealing characters who make the narrative even more engaging. Basilisk doesn't hold back on the violence, and from faces being ripped off to men being sliced in half, you'll have to watch it all. There are also a couple of emotionally disturbing attempted rape scenes that fit into the dreaded world scenario of the narrative. We must also warn you that contrary to the majority of historians, the anime depicts Ieyasu Tokugawa as the villain. If you truly want to enjoy this series, ignore the factual jargon and enjoy the captivating storytelling. Watch out for the iconic righteous violence-filled climax scene, which makes this show unforgettable. Kingdom, 2012. The events of Kingdom take place during a volatile period in Chinese history, where various warring states are struggling for power. Xin and Hu are a couple of war orphans in the Kingdom of Qin, and they dream of becoming a great general on the battlefield one day. Hu is taken to the palace by one of the ministers, but when he returns, he's barely alive. Meanwhile, Xin encounters a boy who looks like Hu, and he's called Eisei. This young boy goes on to become the king of Qin, and then the great emperor Shi Huangdi, and this anime series tells you all about this fascinating journey. Kingdom offers a wonderful view of China's troubled history, and it also shows what each and every soldier goes through during these tough times. This legendary anime series has some excellent character designs, and the great story arc never allows any dull moments to creep in. The world building and attention to detail are truly next level, and this masterpiece is a must-watch for anyone who's into period dramas and fantasy anime shows in general. The most disturbing and hard to digest bits of Kingdom are the sudden deaths of characters who you'll start to care for. While the violence and warfare are rather generic, these deaths will haunt you as you watch the series. On the other hand, the most fascinating parts of this anime are the strategies that the generals adopt during the wars. The smallest of details end up being the decisive factor, and someone very thoughtful came up with all these ideas. The animation quality picks up considerably after the first season, and this is hands down one of the best anime shows out there at the moment. Witch Hunter Robin, 2002. It's a world where witches exist, and this threat is neutralized by an organization named STNJ, which has a group of specialized hunters. Among these hunters is Robin, who has great powers, but is yet to learn the true extent of her potential. She works alongside a nonchalant partner named Amon, and their missions often lead them onto deadly grounds up against superior enemies. However, Robin soon grows uncomfortable about her job of capturing and hunting down witches. She starts questioning the treatment that the the witches receive, and when some crucial secrets are unveiled, her path changes completely. Witch Hunter Robin does beat around the bush for a while before getting to the actual plot, but once it does, there's no looking back. There are always a few hints along the way about the legitimacy of STNJ as an organization, and you'll start wondering why they are more focused on capturing witches instead of killing them. It's a thought-provoking narrative, and the action-packed events will keep the adrenaline flowing the entire time. It might seem a tad bit slow-paced, but the constant suspense will hold your interest. We are particularly a fan of the character design and multi-layered subplots that add to the golden content of the series. The show is not exactly disturbing in nature, but the lack of explicit content or excessive violence is compensated by the harsh reality check once the truth is unveiled. Every die-hard fan of fantasy anime needs to check out Witch Hunter Robin because it is one of the finest specimens in the genre. The Heroic Legend of Arslan, 2015 to 2016. A king is not necessarily a born ruler, but one who learns the art of leadership under the harshest of circumstances. The young prince of Pars named Arslan finds out the hard way that he doesn't have what it takes to be a great ruler like his father. King Andragoras was feared by all, and he was an undefeated king who kept his land safe from the glares of the intruders. Arslan, however, tastes bitter defeat in his very first battle at the age of 14, and he watches helplessly as his beloved kingdom gets burned to ashes. This devastating loss comes as a shock for young Arslan, who witnesses the slaughter of his loved ones, but he is destined to bounce back stronger. One day, this inexperienced young prince will reclaim the fallen kingdom, and his heroic journey is the focus of this incredible anime series. The growth of a character from an immature and unlikable fellow to a great ruler is always fun to watch, and Arslan's journey is simply unforgettable in this regard. The story has this larger-than-life element to it, full of huge battles, military tactics, and multiple twists and turns of fate. You'll also get to witness some of the political turmoil that unfolds within the royal family and those hungry for power. The narrative packs a varied range of supporting characters alongside the main protagonists, and the scenes are never short on realism. The war sequence in the initial episodes can be quite brutal for those who aren't used to graphic violence. People die by the hundreds, and battlefields don't really promise pretty death scenes. In terms of animation quality, it might not be the best in the business, but the series is still visually appealing. The soulful music also complements the story arc, and this unique anime capturing some of the history of Iran is a must-have on your watch list. Shigurui, Death Frenzy, 2007. Shigurui starts off with a rather simplistic premise, but the subplots and intertwining fates of the protagonists soon spread roots to capture a much wider canvas. The story is premised at the beginning of the Edo era, and during this time, Tokugawa Tadanaga holds a fighting tournament. Previously, the fights were fought using wooden swords, but real swords are being introduced this time around. The two iconic fighters are the blind warrior Irako Sagan and his one-armed counterpart Fujiki, both of whom trained under the great Iwamoto Kogen, the finest swordsman in Japan. Now that it's time to prove themselves as the true successor, who will be the last man standing? This atmospheric, horror-based samurai tale is not your regular action-packed, mindless storytelling. The diverse details of the story will leave you amazed, and the theme is quite engrossing and disturbing at the same time. However, when it comes to the disturbing bits in this anime, nothing really crosses the boundaries of what you see in your average adult anime. There are some brutal sword fights between the warriors, and they result in some scenes of decapitation and disembowelment, but that's about it. As for the fan service, there are a couple of scenes of physical intimacy, but once again, nothing is too explicit. The real maturity of the anime probably lies in the overall ambiance and concept, and it looks truly surreal the whole time. Pretty much all the major characters are psychopaths, and the dread and tension in the storytelling are hard to miss. The samurai faces are surely gonna creep you out, and the slow music adds to the unnerving nature of this narrative. This underrated gem is going to leave a few sleepless nights for you, but it will be well worth the pain. Mononoke, 2006. This anime series follows the journey of a mysterious man referred to as the Medicine Seller, who goes around slaying evil spirits called Mononoke. He has a great knowledge of supernatural forces, and he uses his experience and wisdom to solve the mysteries behind various Mononoke specimens that he comes across. The series comprises of 5 story arcs, all of which feature the Medicine Seller in different mysteries. He takes on the Mononoke, which can only be killed once its original form is uncovered, and the reason behind its evil behavior is revealed. Mononoke is possibly yokai anime at its finest, and this eerie and psychedelic narrative is bound to leave you impressed. The visuals are fantastic because of some exceptional work with the animation, and the stories have a strong element of mystery that keeps you guessing the whole time. This anime has been voted as the best work from Toei Animation, and the studio has every reason to be proud of this achievement. The slow-paced nature of the narrative hardly ever bothers the viewer in this anime, And instead of non-stop action, you get to witness some artsy and creepy depictions of simple exorcism stories led by the magical healer. It takes a brave heart to sit through Mononoke, and it's not just about random violence or gore. The fear factor is largely from the creepy background music, facial expressions, and the other subtle details that add up to the psychological horror element of the series. You must experience this chilling and beautiful masterpiece because there aren't very many like this. That's it for this video, but do let us know in the comments below about which anime from our list are ones that you're personally invested in. Also, tell us about some of your favorite modern and upcoming anime shows, especially if they border on the adult dark fantasy genre. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day!